Hey everybody, welcome back to The Art of Change. We're going deep into this series about evolutionary leadership, and we call this empathy in action, leading with heart and vision. And we'll define what that looks like today. This is going to be a four episode series diving into evolutionary leadership. And today with me, I have Kevin Boss as our guest speaker. Kevin, welcome, and please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey everybody, I'm Kevin Boss. I'm a Colorado native, so by virtue, I attended Colorado State University, where I got my degree in organizational leadership. I fell in love with leadership, and I've been working on a master's in organizational psychology, which complements that, with plans to get my PhD in psychology. From there, I've spent 6 years in the Colorado Army National Guard, overseeing and coordinating responses to critical stateside emergencies where the National Guard would be activated to respond to in-progress critical incidents. From there, I've spent almost 20 years in law enforcement. I started off as a deputy at our local agency, rose to the rank of sergeant, got to see over a tactical team, and then got promoted to commander, where I oversaw some watches, and then recently promoted to a division chief, where I oversee an entire criminal investigations division. Aside from that, one of my favorite aspects of my current job is quite often I get asked to come and sit on promotional processes for other agencies or organizations where they select their future leaders.
Awesome. What I love listening about your background is talking about how you went from different levels of an organization and you worked your way up and you've gotten all the way to the point of chief. And we don't do that simply by looking good on paper. We do that because of obviously taking care of our people. And so I think what's crazy is we think this concept, taking care of people, sounds like common sense, and it's not so common, right?
Correct.
There's what I call a huge epidemic in the work centers where we aren't seeing these leaders who lead with the heart. And so what I really want to focus on today is taking people's leadership style. Most people have heard the transformational leadership, which we'll dive into what that looks like. But I want us to incorporate another style with transformational leadership, what I call evolutionary leadership. And what we're talking about here is human-centered, change-driven leadership. What does that mean? So when you think of the word human-centered, Kevin, what does that mean to you?
Well, Tony, I think the first word you say is super important. It's human-focused. I think you hit a good point. And we focus often on goals or missions or objectives we want to accomplish. What we forget to really take into account is the only way you can do that is with people, and people are human. And so when you focus on the people, you can accomplish so much more. You can drive an organization forward. But when you focus not on people, you're constantly kind of in that cycle of having to recycle people because they don't feel like they should be there.
Right. They lose their value as an organization. And I always I picture like the assembly line, right? Like, okay, we're looking at data, right? Produce 100 things per minute or per hour or whatever it might be. And one piece fails, bring in a new one, right? And so we started treating people as if they were objects. They were things that were disposable and replaceable in a heartbeat. And the reality is, if we have high performing, high trust individuals in an organization, they're not people we want to get rid of.
Correct.
And we want them in those positions. But what happens if one of them does break? I don't want to bring a new person in. I want to keep developing this person. I want to bring new people who are just like that and replicate what I'm seeing on the work floor. So focusing on the human takes care of those people. We all have good days. We all have bad days. And we really need to do a better job of trying to make sure that we take care of those people. And when we see good performers start to struggle, we need to start asking the right questions of how do I take care of these people to help them get back to their level that they need to be. But more importantly, we also have those individuals that might not be high performers yet, but they are individuals you can see they have passion. You can see that they have determination. They want to learn, but they're just not naturally as good as maybe, Bob or, whoever. Can we get them there? 100%, right? And
Absolutely.
So we need to work on how as leaders do we do that? Do we do that through development? Right? Leadership development or training. Or is it simple as incorporating new programs, right? Some of these companies that you see nowadays like Microsoft or Google coming up with new innovative ways, right, to excel and move their company forward, but also taking in consideration their individuals in the company. So, a couple things real quick on, key fact on here, right? We have 70% of employees that would feel more valued and motivated if their leaders showed empathy. So when I think about that, everybody says, oh, I'm empathetic, right? How do you show that? What do you, and especially when your background in the police force, right? Everybody knows police, military, right? Very, very stern, very straight, right?
Yeah.
How do you show empathy in an organization that's known to be lacking empathy?
You know, back to what you're saying earlier, we make it human. And so when you remove empathy, you remove the human side of that out. You become focused on the process. And so empathy is allowing emotion and feeling to come in, which, right, military, like no emotion, no feelings, march forward, right? That's how most of us probably could describe our military careers. When you show empathy, you show care, you show feeling. And that's not like a teddy bear, oh, it's all soft and cuddly, but it's actually genuine. You're expressing to that individual that you genuinely care about them, as well as where an organization, might be trying to move forward towards a mission or vision, but you focus on that individual first.
Yeah, and I think you hit a crucial point there is, when we start talking about that soft, cuddly teddy bear, right? I think what people forget is it's not about being emotional, you being emotional. Right. It's allowing your people to be towards you and you giving them that safe space to do so, right?
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with you opening up to your subordinates, but I would caution the point of this leadership style and developing is by you allowing them to come to you, right? Couldn't tell you how many times I've heard leaders who say, I have an open door policy, right? And that's great, but what does that mean? We really need to identify, if we're saying that means I want you to feel like if you got an issue, you can come to me. But I think often people misconstrue what the open door policy means. And so again, coming back to it, how do we take care of the human, the human centered and really getting into that core value? And that leads us into the whole idea of the core principles and values of leading with empathy and what I call evolutionary leadership. The first one really talking about empathy and understanding. What's the difference, do you think? Best way to describe empathy versus understanding?
Empathy is more sharing the feelings. Understanding is actually the cognitive process of taking that in and working through that, would be what I would say. Understanding an individual is different than showing care for them.
Right.
And so, take an employee, for example, walks in and I can physically tell that they're upset. I can see their feelings. I am now going to demonstrate to them that I'm recognizing that, hey, they might need a little one-on-one with me today, whether it's professional or personal, and being able to understand that need and then fulfill or help fulfill that need is going to allow that individual to really be productive, even if they've had the worst day on their way into work that day.
Yeah, great. And the next episode, we're going to talk a little more into active listening, but really I want to capitalize here on that point as you brought that up. With active listening, we've heard tons of motivational speakers talk about it. So I'm going to hit it right here, right? There's a difference between listening and hearing, right? And so a lot of people, and I have ADHD, I'm a little guilty of this myself at times where I hear somebody and I have an idea and I'm like, oh, I got to get it out. I'm going to forget it. And so then the whole time I'm just waiting to speak, but I'm not actively listening. My audience, I've gotten better at this. It takes practice, right? But point being is, what is active listening, right? We need to make sure people understand the difference between active listening and listening to wait to speak.
Correct.
Right. The other part I want to talk about this is emotional intelligence. Everybody talks about EI and having that emotional intelligence. So we'll dive into that a little bit here. But some of the other things I want to bring up, we have the different core values. I'm just going to highlight them for the audience real quick, and then we can dive a couple into these. But inclusivity and collaboration, right? Allowing others to come in, right? Without living in a bubble. Sometimes a lot of corporations, organizations, whatever teams, they feel like if they allow outside entities to include their competition to come in, they're going to get overran, right? And sure, that can be a concern, but sometimes what collaborating actually gets us to the common ground, both to move forward. We'll talk about here in the case study with Microsoft and Satya Nadella, right? Took Microsoft, who is known for all their previous accomplishments, but wasn't really regarded as, hey, they're the future. They're working their way through it, right? And Satya Nadella came in, 10 years ago. Started as an engineer, it took over as the CEO 10 years ago and completely changed the way Microsoft is moving forward. And how do they do that? Innovation, collaboration, right? Human-centered leadership, leading by example, really focusing on the people, but then also focusing on, we as Microsoft can't do this alone. We need to partner with other companies. And a perfect example is now everybody knows ChatGPT and OpenAI, but back when it came out and they partnered with OpenAI, people thought he was crazy for investing $1 billion into this tool back in 2019. Fast forward to, I think it was this year or last year, they invested 10 billion more into the company. And so it shows by collaborating and working together, now Microsoft, I believe, is one of the top 5 stocks that you can actually get into. And so they put them back on the map. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you have somebody, and I can't remember, Tony, if you just said that, so who came in at the line level. Natia started off at the line, and in 10 years became CEO. 10 years for a multi-billion-dollar company with more employees than you can think of, but somebody who had a vision, believed in people, and saw, I think, a sinking ship, and said, I think we can revive this ship. And the way we're going to do it is through vision and through talking to the employees and casting that forward thought of how do we get back? How do we get better? And here comes OpenAI. They acquired LinkedIn. He drove
Activision.
Like, look what they have acquired. And it wasn't hey, we acquired, we're going to shut it down because it's competition. It was, wow, that's a great product you have. Let's make it a part of ours, and let's work, collaboratively, and let's make it better.
And if I remember correctly, I believe, don't quote me on the numbers here, I believe that in his tenure as CEO in 10 years, they have acquired 128 companies, which is more than Microsoft had done in 2 decades. And he didn't dissolve these companies. He brought them in, and they worked together to go forward. And another key stat I want to bring out to the audience, Satya Nadella, Microsoft was a $300 billion company when he took over, right? That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
So, in 10 years, he probably got it up to 350 billion, right? Wrong. 300 billion to now $3 trillion is what that company is now looking at. And so when you talk about success, this is not a minor pickup, right? And is it because Microsoft created a new software for Microsoft Office? No. Right?
No.
It's because they really focus on how do we innovate? How do we get on the same band? Right now that we have Office available on your mobile phones, right? I mean, Microsoft was behind when all these companies were coming up with their mobile phone technology and all these other things. And he found a way to adapt. And key is when we talk about these, this is part of the empathy, right? Adapting, finding out what's going on, and how do you stay in the game, and how do you stay in the race and still become successful? And so when you look at it, right, how would you differentiate for me? Because we talked about transformational leadership earlier, right? So I want to make sure people understand the difference. What's the differential factor of transformational leadership versus other styles to include what we're talking about today?
Yeah, so, transformational leadership is so valuable because you're taking inspiration and motivation for your employee or your coworker, as if you're an informal leader, and you're just driving positive change. Like, we're going to make a positive impact. We're going to take new ideas, and I'm going to empower you to help make those ideas come to fruition and drive forward. And I think that's a lot of what Natya did. When you look about his emphasis on learning and really understanding where is technology going, right? And then his openness to change and listen to those individuals, like that's transformation. We're going to move this, we're focusing forward. But it also hits a point you brought up earlier about evolutionary, and where transformation and evolutionary really kind of tie in together.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And when the reason why I came up with the idea of evolutionary leadership is, you'll see all these leaders, right? They want to transform an organization, and that's fantastic, right? Hopefully in a positive direction. But sometimes people tend to lead in one style. Let's say I have 100 people, and I want to lead the same way for 100 people. You're not going to be effective against 100 people with one style, right? You have to adapt.
Correct.
You have to be able to take the human into consideration, and that's where I call it evolving, right? We need to evolve and adapt to scenarios, to the different people. And it takes work to do that. Over time, it's a skill that you'll be able to do naturally. But over time, it does take some time. But I think it's important because when we think of servant leadership has to do with, in my opinion, leaders work for the people, their subordinates, right? It's not the other way around, right? They don't work for you. I mean, sure, by technical hierarchy, right? They work for you. But the reality is, my job as a leader is to make sure my people enjoy being at work, are getting things done, we're hitting our numbers, whatever it might be. But I think a lot of these organizations have started focusing too much on data points. And data's fine. We want to, data's important. We got to have ideas of growth and all those things. But we traded, for example, one of the things I highlight, we traded empathy for efficiency, right? we took away being, compassionate. We traded that in for control, right? We have these, you will work from 9 to 5, you get your 15-minute break, you will punch in at this time, and we've made it so robotic and forgetting, for example, one of my favorites is Google, if you would have came when Google came up and whoever, I can't remember the gal's name that created all their stuff that they're doing there. But one of the things is nap pods, right? Most leaders would be like, I'm not doing nap pods. Like, that's ridiculous. You're not taking a nap at work, right? Mm-hmm. But the fact that somebody can take a break, go take a nap for 15 minutes, come back fresh, let their brain just be where it's at, right? It's understanding we don't have to keep punching people through the rec line. I think COVID's another perfect example of everybody was fearful of remote working. And sure, just like in anything, you're going to have people that take advantage of it, don't do it, whatever it might be. But if you look at statistics, people are 30% more likely to do more working from home. Don't know why I gave me a thumbs up. More likely to work from home and get more done in that time frame than they would if they were at the work center. And some people think, well, that's crazy. They're at home in their pajamas. But if you think about it, can't tell you how many times I had people come up to your cubicle, right, and start, small talking with you and distract you from getting your stuff done, right?
Yep.
And then, of course, meetings. I don't know about you, but I've had meetings about meetings that are coming about meetings.
The pre-meeting, right?
The pre-meeting.
I need the pre-meeting to the real meeting.
Right. And so when you look at it, there is a way of being more efficient by offering new ideas and innovating things, right? By allowing your people to take a break and take a nap and refresh their brain and come back and hit it stronger, right? There's some truth to that. And there's plenty more things that Google and some other organizations have done to kind of create new ways to do that. And all it took was something simple. And those people are like, man, look at what cool stuff my company is doing for us, right? They're investing in their people's health. They're investing in developing them to be better at what they do, or leadership training. I mean, how many companies don't even offer leadership training and they promote people into, and I think the word leader, it gets thrown around a lot. I want to go in this tangent, right? But I think most people who call themselves leaders are actually managers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you're not really a leader. And that's okay. But you want to be a leader, you got to develop skills for that. And that's where this kind of stuff comes from, right? Evolutionary leadership, transformational leadership, servant leadership, all those different things. We all need to develop those qualities. I know if you probably 20 years ago, different leader than you are today.
Correct, 100%.
You have to change, you have to evolve. But the big thing is, do you lead with your heart, focusing on your people? Right. Or do you lead focusing on the numbers and the statistics to give your organization a positive outcome so you look good? The reality should be, if your people look good, you look good as a leader. It shouldn't be about the leader looking good in general and, I'm going to make my people work harder because I want to make sure I look good, right? It's understanding it's not about us as leaders. It is about our people. And that's where the human-centered approach comes from, right?
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So one more question I want to ask you there is, when you think about long-term benefits, right? One of the things that, it's, again, we're a culture focused on data points. I want to know data tomorrow. If I incorporate a leadership style today, what am I going to see different tomorrow? And the answer is nothing.
Nothing.
It's an investment, and investments take time. And you'll see over time that as you invest in your people, your retention goes higher. Next year, you'll see an increase in your revenue because your employees are happier and they're making better sales or whatever they're doing. But that will drastically increase. So when you think about adopting a leadership style like evolutionary leadership, transformational leadership, what are some of the long-term benefits that you've seen or you think an organization would get by doing this?
You gain empowerment of your staff who have an environment that's been fostered and created where they enjoy being at work. So think of it on Sunday nights. Put it in perspective. Typical person works Monday through Friday, right? It's Sunday nights. You just finished watching Sunday Night Football. What does everybody think? Oh, tomorrow's Monday. I don't want to go to work. But what if, Tony, we fostered an environment where the employee enjoys their job, they feel valued, they feel empowered, and Sunday night, albeit they may not want to go, if I had to be with my family or go be at work, of course I'm going to choose my family. But if I can't be with my family and I got to go to work, or I get to go to work, what if I walked in knowing I'm excited for what I do? I'm excited for who I work with. I'm excited because my boss knows my name, knows maybe something personally about me. And I'm going to drive. Like, you're going to drive. And when you foster that environment, your staff's unstoppable.
Couldn't agree with you more. I mean, when we've gotten as a culture, we've developed, we've kind of trained ourselves this way, right? We always go, like, it's the group think, right? Oh, it's Monday. It's Manic Monday. This is gonna be terrible because it's the first day of the week. But the reality is that's just us kind of succumbing to group talk, group think, to bonding, right? The reality is, if I enjoy the people I work with, if I really have a boss that's caring and I really enjoy seeing them, and I'm going to see, Tim Smith tomorrow and we're going to chat about the week, whatever it might be, right? Like, you're just happy to be there, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're not necessarily happy in the position you're in, but you're happy at the place you're at,
right,
you'll still find satisfaction, right? And does that mean eventually you'll rotate to something else in a different position because you obviously want to enjoy what you're doing? Sure, that's fine. But the company itself, the organization, will still retain these people longer if they enjoy coming there. Heck, I know a lot of people that have not liked the actual physical job they're doing, but have stayed with the company for years because they really love the environment they're in. And that's what you have to replicate, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. So, with that in mind, that's episode 1. What I want to do here is encourage everybody to listen to episode 2. What we're going in here is building empathy. And so taking these core principles and values we talked about, and we're really going to get into these practical ways to use empathy, and why this is such a crucial skill for leaders. And a lot of us, by listening, think, I have empathy, but let's do some self-reflection. Do you truly show empathy in your leadership style? And if you can say yes, that's fantastic. Let's build that stronger. If you're real with yourself and you say, you know what, I probably need to dive a little deeper in my ability to show empathy, this is the perfect scenario for us to help you get to that level of developing your leadership style to lead from the heart. So thank you for joining us with Kevin Boss and I today, everyone. Stay tuned for episode 2, which we'll be releasing next week.